Jamal Roberts stepped onto the starting line of the annual Meridian Breast Cancer Awareness Walk in the brisk autumn air of Meridian, Mississippi, where the leaves painted the pavements in strokes of amber and scarlet. The walk was hosted by the Meridian Breast Cancer Awareness Association. The 15th of October, 2025 was a date that would forever be carved into the hearts of survivors, families, and courageous individuals all around the country. Jamal, who was 32 years old at the time, was not a typical participant. He was the golden voice sensation who had captured America on American Idol 8 years previously, and his heartfelt interpretations of gospel-tinged ballads were what propelled him to the top spot in season 14 of the competition. But he was not present to give a performance today, despite the fact that the sky was streaked with the first traces of dawn. He was here to lead, not with a microphone but with his feet, his heart, and an unbreakable spirit that had carried him from the cotton fields of his infancy to the dazzling lights of fame. He was here to lead. Jamal adjusted the pink ribbon that was pinned to his Team Roberts t-shirt, and the cloth allowed his calloused fingertips to feel comfortable against the fabric. The shirt, which was made by local artisans to his specifications, had the silhouette of a phoenix rising from a sea of ribbons, which was a visual representation that he had personally selected. As he would add in interviews, rising is not about falling less. His rich baritone would sound as warm as bourbon that had been aged. It's about getting up louder each time. A record number of people are expected to participate in the walk this year, which is being organized by the Southeast Mississippi Breast Cancer Foundation. Jamal's engagement is the driving force behind this record attendance. Over the course of several weeks, his name had been prominently displayed on billboards along Highway 19, which said, "Walk with a winner, Jamal Roberts for hope." However, for Jamal, this was not about gaining fame. Legacy was the theme, and it was braided together with the threads of love and loss. On Sunday mornings, gospel hymns could be heard filling the air through open windows in a humble brick house located on the outskirts of Meridian. This was the beginning of his path that led him to this moment. Having been brought up by his mother, Loretta Roberts, who worked double shifts at the local textile mill, Jamal was taught at a young age that music served as both an escape and a form of reinforcement. Loretta's laughter had been the soundtrack to his boyhood. It was full and unfettered, and it filled the air while she braided his hair and sang spirituals while stirring pots of collard greens. In 2017, however, that laugh diminished. Loretta fought with the strength of a hurricane after she was diagnosed with stage II breast cancer just a few months after Jamal's audition tape for American Idol went viral across the internet. Her previously vivid hair were replaced by a silk scarf while she went through chemotherapy sessions, which turned into hospital vigils. Jamal, who was a lanky 24-year-old man in Nashville who was pursuing his aspirations at the time, abandoned everything. He held her hand through the nausea and the nights when the anguish clawed like a beast because he postponed tour dates, exchanged spotlights for bedside stories, and traded spotlights for bedside stories. A tearful Jamal would later reminisce on the experience, saying, "She taught me harmony," during an interview with Oprah, not only in music but also in the midst of grief. By leaning into the discord rather than avoiding it, you are able to achieve harmony. As a result of Loretta's determination, she entered remission in 2019. Her remission party was a block-wide barbecue, and Jamal performed an original ballad called "Ribbons of Grace." It was the verses about fragility and fire that gave the song its genuine strength, as evidenced by lines such as "Threads of pink weave through the dark, pulling us back to the spark." The song was successful in climbing the charts and was even nominated for a Grammy. It became an anthem for survivors, and it was downloaded millions of times by women who were waiting in waiting rooms while clutching their chemotherapy bags. However, the brightness of celebrity was not enough to protect Jamal from its shadows. His voice was strained from over-performance, and his spirit was parched as a result of the tornado of venues and endorsements that he encountered at the conclusion of American Idol. In the year 2022, he relocated to Meridian, where he purchased the family home and transformed the backyard into a communal garden. There, in the midst of rows of sunflowers and heirloom tomatoes, he discovered rhythm once more. Although it was not in the acclaim, it was in the dirt. Of Auntie was brought to his attention at one of these dawns when he was tending to the earth. Auntie May, who was his mother's older sister and the matriarch of the family, found a lump while performing a normal check as part of her duties. She was 68 years old when she went to work as a nurse at Kemper County Hospital, where she bandaged wounds that were both visible and invisible. The tone of her voice was steady but cracked as she muttered, "Jamal, baby," over the phone. "Don't you worry about it. When it comes to people who didn't have your prayers, I've made things worse for them." Even yet, he was concerned. During his time in the garden, he would pace furrows while scribbling poems on napkins, turning the area into a miniature war room. As soon as Auntie May started receiving treatment, Jamal turned his sorrow into a positive activity. The Roberts Ribbon Fund is a charitable organization that distributes the revenues from American Idol to health clinics located in rural areas of Mississippi. There was a 40% increase in screenings in Lauderdale County alone, with pink mobile units shining like beacons as they traveled across dusty backroads. However, it was not sufficient. When he was speaking to benefactors at galas, he would say, "Music heals the ear," but he would also say, "A presence heals the bone." As a result, when the committee for Meridian Walk came out to him, initially in a cautious manner through a fan letter, he responded without any hesitation. He encouraged, "Make it bigger," and I agreed, "Make it ours." At this moment, as the sun rose above the pine horizon, the beginning territory was teeming with activity. Attached to folding tables that were stacked with energy bars and water bottles, pink balloons floated around like stubborn hearts attached to the tables. During the evening portion, volunteers wearing matching visors distributed glow sticks to the participants. Meanwhile, a DJ blasted a playlist that Jamal had created, which included Aretha Franklin's Respect melting into Lizzo's Truth Hurts, which was a note of encouragement in every key. Families gathered together in groups, with survivors wearing sashes that said, "I kicked cancer's ass," youngsters holding donated teddy bears that were adorned with ribbons, and males wearing allies in pink t-shirts to demonstrate that the struggle was not limited to a certain gender. With his 6'2" size, Jamal glided through the crowd like a soft river, making it impossible to miss him while at the same time appearing inconspicuous. The young girl's bald head shone brightly under a glittery bandana as he leaned down to sign a poster that she had created. With a smile that creased the corners of his eyes, he inquired, "What is your superpower, little warrior?" "Singing like you," she explained with a beaming smile, and he smiled as he pulled her into an embrace that smelled of his morning coffee and cedar cologne mixed together. A short distance away, Auntie May stood with a cane in one hand and Loretta's arm in the other. She was wearing a flowing shirt that concealed the chemotherapy port that she was using. A few weeks ago, she had completed her final cycle, and her scans were as clear as the sky in the summer. She mocked Jamal by saying, "Look at you leading the pack," as her eyes wet with tears. "Mama is very proud. We are all very proud." At 7:45 in the morning, the air horn sounded, and it was a piercing, joyous cry. Jamal positioned himself at the front of the stage, surrounded by organizers and a phalanx of former American Idol contestants who had arrived without prior announcement. These included the runner-up, Leela Voss, who was carrying her ukulele over her shoulder, and the wild-card favorite, Marcus Hale, whose bass voice boomed like thunder. Meridian. When Jamal called out into the megaphone, his tone was exaggerated yet still personal, as if he were speaking to each individual soul. "There is more to today than just strolling. As we march, we are each and every mother who hummed through the pain, each and every sister who sewed strength from scars, and each and every dreamer who had the courage to break through. What about this ribbon? This is our flag. Make it a high wave." It was a sea of pink that surged forward as the crowd shouted in anger. To go back to the lodge where pancakes were waiting for them, the 3-mile route wound through the downtown area of Meridian, past the old Denzel carousel that was frozen in eternal spin, along the walks that were shaded by shamrocks and Highland Park, and which were supplied pairs from a sponsor and each laced with ribbon trim. Jamal maintained a steady pace that was not racing but rather rhythmic. His sneakers touched the pavement in time with his breath each time. The stories he drew out of walkers were like tunes from a lost symphony. He engaged in conversation with them. Carla, a teacher from Quitman who was 45 years old and had lost her breast but not her fire, told how she had Ribbons of Grace playing on repeat as she was recovering from a double mastectomy. After listening and nodding his head, Jamal began singing an a cappella stanza which went as follows: "Through the valley we call your name, but pink flames are dancing in the rain." Carla sobbed and joined the chorus, her voice beginning tentatively and then becoming more confident. Approximately halfway through, the tour came to a stop at the gazebo in the park for the Survivor Spotlight. The presence of Jamal served as a bridge between the suffering and the possibilities. There was a black grandmother who had been battling inflammatory breast cancer in silence for years, a Latina entrepreneur whose diagnosis upended her food truck empire, and a trans woman who was navigating hormone therapies alongside treatment, her story being a testament to intersectional battles. One by one, women ascended the steps. His introductions were poetry, such as Behold Alina, who turned tamales into triumph, and when the applause erupted, Jamal gathered them into group hugs and whispered encouragements like sacred chords. Jamal magnified each of them. However, Jamal's vitality remained unabated despite the fact that exhaustion was beginning to set in. Without anyone knowing, he had been preparing for this by jogging through the garden at dawn while saying positive affirmations such as "Your stride is your song." A flash mob of local schoolchildren, choreographed to his hit song Phoenix Soul, was waiting for them at mile 2. Their pink sneakers were stomping in unison as they performed the dance. Jamal joined them, and his baritone voice wove its way through the choir, transforming the park into a concert in motion. All of the enchantment was filmed on mobile devices, with videos that were destined to go viral on TikTok and X, with hashtags such as #JamalWalksForHope trending across the country. There were checks that were already ballooning the fund to 7 figures and sponsors, ranging from independent coffee roasters to national pharmaceutical firms, observed from tents. Upon reaching the finish line, sweat was dripping from the brows, but happiness triumphed over exhaustion. Jamal crossed the finish line last, making sure that those who had fallen behind felt like they were seen, his arm linked with Auntie May's. As he hoisted the megaphone for the very last time, the audience cheered and separated like a curtain at the same time. The words Meridian have been put into action. The march, however, it never comes to an end. Contribute, reveal, and defy. In honor of Loretta, May, and each and every ribbon warrior all across the world, I love you even more. As the assembly swayed and their voices blended together in a tapestry of timbre and witness, he began playing Ribbons of Grace without plugging in the instrument. After the sun had set and the event was about to begin, Jamal remained there and signed autographs until the final volunteer had finished packing up chairs. Auntie May drew him away from her, her hold on him being firm. "I'm sorry, nephew, but you didn't just lead a walk. You were the one who brought us back." He gave a slight nod, his throat constricted, the weight of her words appearing to settle like fruitful soil. Jamal Roberts was no longer the winner of American Idol when he was warmly embraced by Meridian. The heartbeat, the harmony, and the hope that was moving ahead one pink step at a time were all represented by him.